Good morning, people. This is me, Ivan Verstuk, and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about the war in Ukraine, which has been taking place since February 24th. Well, many aspects this war has. We also have the battlefield news, and yesterday we had the statistics on how many losses Ukrainian army has, and compared to what losses the Russian army has gone through. We can say that Ukrainian army is fighting very efficiently, caring about lives of the soldiers and officers, which is really good news, and tells good things about the commanders of the Ukrainian army. But there was another important aspect of the war that I want to talk about, and this is work of the Ukrainian media during the war. War includes the information warfare tactics and methods. And winning the information warfare is also extremely important. Russian propaganda is trying to promote own version of what's happening in Ukraine, lying all the times and producing all kind of fakes, which they are able to place even in the European media sometimes, the Russian narratives. They promote them. They have their English language television network, which is called Russia Today. It's like official propaganda thing. And they do the same thing in Ukraine. They're trying to inject their narratives in the Ukrainian information world and make people here in Ukraine believe that what Russians say kind of makes sense, why it doesn't. So I want to understand what's the deep root of the problems of the Ukrainian media. Well, the main problem is funding. After the war started, those people who were media owners, they just introduced really severe austerity regime, cutting salaries of journalists, sometimes paying really small sums of money for journalists' work, like 100 euros a month or 150 euros a month, which doesn't even cover your living needs. Basically, that means that they don't want the people to work in the media. Well, the private sector, it went through this risk-free path. They've transferred all their capital abroad to Austrian banks and elsewhere when the war started, and keep money in European banks, not in Ukraine, until the war will be over. And that's why they're not paying good salaries to journalists. So the Ukrainian media is severely underfunded. No one works properly. No one really wants to work full-time in the media because it doesn't pay anything. And during the war, it's a huge risk, because in Ukraine, we need talented people, intellectuals to come to work in the media, write articles, produce videos, talk on the radio shows. And that's not happening. I've been working in the Ukrainian media for almost 20 years. And saw a lot of things here. Ukrainian journalists always had really low salaries. That's why when Russians wanted to bribe a Ukrainian journalist, it was a very cheap affair. For $1,000 a month, Ukrainian journalists would agree to produce all sorts of pro-Russian narratives and get them published in Ukraine. That's how it worked. While Ukrainian owners of the media didn't pay well, the Russian propaganda paid pretty well. That's what the root of the problem. But of course, war is a different thing. So why do we still have Russian narratives in the Ukrainian media? In the social media, in the classical media? Well, the first reason is because Ukrainian journalists need better education. Ukrainian journalism schools, they're mostly older ones, and they were established back in the communist years. And way, like my generation of journalists was trying to get a professional education for becoming a journalist. All these schools, they still had their communist era professors who were not really journalists or editors, but former workers of Soviet propaganda, Soviet Communist Party propaganda. You couldn't learn anything from those professors. All they knew is how to produce Soviet-style propaganda. Well, at some point, Ukraine's international partners tried to help with this, establishing workshops for Ukrainian journalists, seminars, online courses, everything. And also, American and British universities, they offered scholarships and fellowships. If you want to travel and study journalism in Columbia or in London, you could do that, or in Oxford or Cambridge. You could do that. But, you can educate 5, 10, 15 journalists at one of those fellowships. Well, it's thousands of people working in journalism, and all of them can't get journalism degree in Columbia or Oxford. They have to rely on what kind of education they were able to get here in Ukraine. And that education is quite poor. So for the future, we need to invest more in the media. We need to find the Ukrainian capital for this. It's not like we can endlessly rely on the Western support and make Western taxpayers pay for how Ukrainian media works. We need to start the whole cycle, the business cycle of media business here in Ukraine. And that involves reforms, changes, and proper efforts. We need to fund the media so it would become resilient, so it could hire talented people, so it could invest in cybersecurity, so it could stop the Russian narratives right away when they appear in the Ukrainian social media. And also, we need better education for journalists. I believe each Ukrainian journalist should spend at least 2 weeks a year getting new knowledge, attending courses, talking to professors, talking to experienced editors and other journalists. Otherwise, we're not going to have media. We'll have the news, and that's it. We won't have journalism. We'll just have the news. And with the news, you can do all kinds of manipulation if you're paid for this by the Russian propaganda machine. It's hard for me to say these things because, I've been working in the Ukrainian media for many years. And I was trying to change how things are here. I was talking about this. I was writing about this extensively. I was talking about this publicly, but all kinds of problems that Ukrainian journalism has. But it's like people kept ignoring what I say, thinking, well, that Ivan dude just saying things that he believes in. And we have our own thing. I have our own thing. That's how it works. So we need to change this. We're winning the information war because we are strong. Because right now, journalism is not a job. It's not a paid job. It's a volunteering. It's your obligation in the face of Russian aggression and Russian invasion. That's like your citizens' obligation to produce pro-Ukrainian journalism and produce a Ukrainian voice that would be telling honest things about the war. If you're watching this, please be helpful. Please help us, Ukrainian people, to change our journalism and to change our media. Ukrainian media is on the wrong path, unfortunately. I have to admit this. We're winning the information war, but much more needs to be done. Much more needs to be done. Support the Ukrainian media, but do it in a smart way. Otherwise, you might fund the Russian propaganda while you donate to a Ukrainian website. Unfortunately, that's like the reality of life here. Be supportive. We are winning. Glory to Ukraine.